Okay, I think we are back up and running. I'm not too sure what was happening there, but I pulled up this streaming program and I saw that there were 3,000 drop frames, which means we're not putting out a good signal. And I kind of suspect that might have been GR level 2 maybe consuming traffic. Anyway, we'll just go ahead and press forward, keep things going. It's looking good right now. So anyway, let's get back on track here. Okay, we were taking a look at the thickness chart, and what I like to do with this chart is try to find the biggest systems, such as the semi-permanent Bermuda High along the East Coast, which we normally find this time of year, and of course the Pacific High, which affects much of the West Coast. I can see that the Bermuda High covers a very large area, all the way from the Caribbean up to the Gulf of Mexico and pretty much the eastern half of the country. So this is all under the influence of the Bermuda High. And then the Pacific system. This is the big Pacific High. And these are things we're going to want to watch for over the next week to see how they move around and shrink, contract, maybe move to another place. So we're going to watch those two features. Right now they're in their classic locations, and then up to the north we've got a new cold front coming out of Canada right there. So there it is. And looks like maybe a little bit of a tail end going from South Dakota up to Montana like that. So that's kind of a sort of a stationary front there. So this is showing a fresh polar air mass coming southward. Looks like that might be centered in North Dakota. So this is all polar air mass. And then up to the north, looks like we have another air mass coming south. There's been a lot of activity up there, all the way from the Canadian prairies up to the northwestern polar area of Canada. So this is the next system coming down. That looks pretty potent there. You can see 4 lines there of thickness showing a pretty strong gradient, and that's what the frontal system looks like. Looks like the baroclinic low up there north of Victoria Island, and the bulk of the cold air coming through western Northwest Territories there. So that'll probably be the next thing to come southeast over the next couple days. So this gives us a pretty thorough picture of what's happening. So just to kind of recap, the Bermuda High, looks like some of this is kind of merged with the old polar high, or yeah, so the old polar high up in this area, then the Bermuda High itself here. It's forming one large air mass there, and of course the system coming out of Canada, the second system up to the north, and the Pacific High way out to the west. So that's pretty much the key to what's happening today. We can go to the charts and kind of run with that there. This is the precipitable water, and we can see very high amounts there in southwestern Louisiana. Got that good fetch of tropical air coming up from the southeast there, and that blue right there indicating over 2.5 inches of precipitable water. So if we squeezed all the water vapor out of the column to produce our precipitation, we would have potentially 2.5 inches in the rain gauge. And that's pretty high for this time of year, 2.5 there in Louisiana. And it looks like there's more coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, and that's likely going to pick up even more moisture through evaporation as it heads towards Louisiana and Texas. So looks like we've got some pretty good precip chances coming up over the next week. 0 drop frames. Okay, good. That's what I like to see. I think we're good. I suspect based on what happened last week, we were running GR level 2, getting frame drops, and I think that's what caused it. So I'm going to have to be aware of that next week. Probably take a quick look at GR level 2 when we need to see something, and then we'll shut it down. Upper levels, we've got the main polar front jet up there in Canada. There it is, running west to east. And looks like we've got kind of a southern system that could either be a branch of the polar front jet or that could be a subtropical jet. I think this is probably a polar front jet because It's showing a very strong cyclonic curvature through this area. The subtropical jet tends to be somewhat anticyclonic most of the time. And then the other thing we would look at is the 500 millibar chart. The subtropical jet is not really going to show up at 500 millibars. This is up in the mid-levels, about 18,000 feet. And what we see here is some modest westerly winds, 25, 35 knot winds there. Yeah, we're not going to see that with a subtropical jet. So this is a southern branch. We've got kind of a split flow pattern going on today. And with that cyclonic pattern there in the southwestern U.S., that's going to mean increased rain chances in the Four Corners area and potential increase in storm chances there in the southern plains with that stronger flow aloft. Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead and head into the other charts. Maybe take a look at a couple of skew-ts. I know that tends to be popular there. Let's see if we have the latest ones in. Yeah, there we go. There's Fort Worth. So, yeah, there's been a pretty good increase in moisture. This isn't too bad. This is 60s and low 70s. Actually, yeah, the whole thing is 60s right there, but it's pretty deep. That goes all the way up to about 7,000 feet. And let's see what the parcel lifts look like. Very slight amount of positive energy in there. And it looks like the main contributor to that is not only the higher moisture in the low levels, but also just kind of a small bit of heightened lapse rates due to cold air at about 600 to 700 millibars, kind of in there. It's kind of a pocket of cooler air helping to steepen the lapse rates. Also maybe a little bit of cool air up in here. And that probably has a bit of maybe a origin from the northeast U.S., like around the Midwest. Get a little bit of that differential advection, bringing cool air in the mid-levels and warm air in the low levels. That gives us kind of cold over warm, which is unstable. And also some dry air aloft, which is going to help the decapes and help with outflow generation. And, of course, that will kill storms, but if we have enough instability to kind of balance that, that can give us kind of an active pattern with lots of outflow pools, lots of new updrafts regenerating. And that gives us kind of a lot to look at. All right, so let's see. I think we're probably ready. Yeah, let's take a look at a couple more skew-ts instead of doing just one. Let's see. We'll take a look at, let's try Jacksonville, Florida. We know that they're kind of in that Bermuda high. They've probably had that sea breeze blow through earlier today. And there's what the salmon looks like. Looks like some nice lapse rates from the surface up to about 5,000. Moisture looks a little bit weak towards the mid-levels there. That could be because of the storms earlier today. But down in the low levels, 70 looks like low 70s dew points there. This is kind of a moist adiabatic lapse rate all the way up the column, and this is what we typically see with a tropical air mass, something like that there. And out on the wind plots, you can see that deep easterly flow there, 15 to 25 knots, all the way up to about 20,000 feet. I would try Oakland, California. They're going to be, let's see, kind of a weak westerly flow in that area. They've got maybe a little bit of the marine layer kind of sneaking into that area. And up aloft, very strong northwesterly flow up to, looks like 80, yeah, about 80 knots up there at 200 millibars. Looks fairly dry. And pretty good inversion there. You can see if we go up to 850 millibar, let's see, 900 millibars. It's 26 Celsius. It's almost 80 degrees up there. It's hard to believe. Just 4,000 feet above Oakland, it's almost 80 degrees. And that contrasts very sharply with 60s near the ground. So warm over cold is a stable layer, and that's an inversion. And that's going to trap some of the pollutants in there. So I would imagine things are probably a little bit hazy in that there in the Bay Area. And up aloft, pretty good lapse rate up above that inversion, but we're lacking moisture. So we're not going to get any elevated storms and that kind of thing. Then we'll go out to the deserts and look at Salt Lake City. They're kind of in between systems. Don't have a sounding from them. So we'll try Elko. Yep, there's a typical desert profile. Very warm conditions, dry adiabatic lapse rate from the surface all the way up to about 15,000 feet. And not much moisture because the moisture line is way over to the left. So very low relative humidities, a little bit of a subsidence inversion there at about 500 millibars. And other than that, I would just, expect fair weather with a sounding like that. As far as tropical weather, I kind of missed that earlier, but got a couple systems to look at. Florence, Tropical Storm Florence has come together there, 45 knot winds on that. Only 1,000 millibars, which is, kind of high. That's kind of a weak system. But they're projecting that to kind of move sort of west-northwest. Looks like that might graze Bermuda there. And the GFS is indicating the potential for that to also graze Cape Cod. So there's still quite a bit of uncertainty with the track. We're talking about next week, like 7 to 10 days before it gets to the East Coast. So for all we know, it could take a more westerly track like that towards the East Coast, or a more easterly track, just completely avoiding North America. So we'll just kind of have to watch this over the next week, and we should get a better picture where that storm is going. Then we've got this potential tropical cyclone 7 there, 25 knot winds in that, but that is taking a west-northwest path towards the West Gulf region. Looks like NHC going for landfall there Wednesday morning in Louisiana, and then the remnants of that will head up into northeast Texas around Thursday or Friday. And of course, this is not a firm track. It could always shift a little bit to the west or a little bit to the east, and depending on which way it goes, we get completely different results there. So again, with this, we're just going to have to wait and see. Come back for the Tuesday webcast, Tuesday at 8 p.m., and with that sitting right there, we should have a pretty good idea where it's going to head from there. And you can see the S's right there. We're expecting that just to be a tropical storm, and that's below hurricane limits. So we'll go ahead and put things together, and let's see. Let me just take a quick check on the chat there. Looks like we got everybody back. And I'm not going to be able to read all the comments, otherwise we would be here another 10 or 15 minutes, but let me just skim very quickly through here. Pilot Mule Rider, welcome to the webcast. Tropical low to park over Shreveport for a few days, yeah. Coffeyville, Kansas, Erica Baker, 87 over 73 there, warnings in her area. Got Ryan Toomeys, Ron Chalfant, Mike R., Burl H., Jeff Krob, and Megan John. Got Mike R. there on the West Coast. Did that Oakland skew-t for you there. And JT, Cayo Delphi, Megan John, Dodgever. It's a new name there. Welcome to the webcast. Shirley Keast, Alexi Pinkson Walsh, and let's see here. Oh, Jeff Krob mentions we're probably going to be able to salvage GOES 17 ABI. There will be IR saturation during 2 to 3 hour time frames during the equinox periods. I appreciate that, Jeff. Wow, yeah, there's a lot of chat in here. So anyway, we'll go ahead and keep things moving and head into the forecast. Justin Pulliam, yeah, I'll go ahead and give you the Lake Charles soundings. A lot of people like to practice on those soundings, so why not? Now, we know that based on the maps we looked at, before I look at a sounding, I like to have an idea what the air mass is like, and we've seen so far, going through these maps, that they're in that deep fetch of tropical moisture, and we've also got that wave in that area. Lake Charles is located right there, so that could be interesting. Let's pull up Lake Charles. And this was taken about an hour ago. And it wasn't taken an hour ago. It's not in the system, so we'll just get this morning's data. And there we go. So yeah, this is a very tropical looking sounding. Not a whole lot of instability. It's conditionally unstable for the most part, but huge amounts of moisture, pushing that moisture line way over to the right, which means it's pretty easy to get a parcel that's going to override and stay on, or not, I shouldn't say override, a parcel that's going to be way over to the right and stay to the right of the temperature trace like that. So we're getting some tall, skinny cape with that. Not a whole lot of instability there, and with the sounding being very moist, that's really going to limit the outflow production of these storms. Also, it's very uncapped, so that means numerous cells. So looking at the sounding, we get an idea of the character of the storms that are going to go up. So we're going to see numerous cells because of the lack of a cap. They're not going to produce a whole lot of outflow, like giant outflow pools gusting out because of the lack of dry air. And most likely because of the weak shear profiles. If you look over here, weakly sheared storms means that they're going to be undercut pretty quickly, even by a small downdraft. So you're looking at storms that are kind of pulsing up and getting killed very quickly and then regenerating nearby, numerous cells going up and springing up and falling apart. That's a good sounding there for rain. Okay, so let's head into the forecast. We'll look at the Texas area for the short term like we usually do. Run that forward. There's that little wave there south of Lake Charles, and we can see that deep southerly flow coming up off the Gulf there into Louisiana. Looks like it's affecting most of East Texas and Louisiana. Some storms out over the hill country of Texas. Those die off towards midnight, and then kind of quiet except in the southeast part of Texas. Looks like some of those cells continuing overnight with that wave, and we're going to see chances of rain going up quite a bit here in our part of Texas. Looking at the upper levels, there's that trough out there in the Four Corners area, and with that, the weak segment of the jet coming around the base of that, heading up into Kansas, helping to shear those storms a little bit. And we've got the subtropical high way out to the east. Looks like that's sitting over Maryland and Virginia. And with that, probably high temperatures. Let's see what the temperatures are in that area. Yeah, they're up to 86, 85, 87 there in Virginia. And I would expect, let's see if this high builds. See the 594 contour there, covering maybe a little bigger than Virginia. And then tomorrow, looks like it expands a little bit, which might indicate temperatures going up a little bit for tomorrow. Okay, where's the rest of my maps here? Okay. Yeah, looks like that kind of sits over the East Coast all the way through Wednesday, so probably a continuation of hot weather in that area of the country. And let's head to the continental map, and let's see what things are doing. Very active pattern up there in Canada. You can see the kind of a zonal jet coming across western Canada into Ontario and Quebec. A couple of large waves moving through the prairies and British Columbia there. And up to the north, we've got this northern stream. That's pretty active, and that's bringing some cold air into the northwest Canadian area. And there's that big subtropical high there over Virginia. So let's see what the changes are over the next 3 or 4 days. Nothing really big. Looks like that trough kind of fills in or lifts up to the north. So by the time we get into Thursday, it's sort of gone there. The subtropical high over the eastern U.S. still there. Zonal flow over Canada, that's still there also. Not a whole lot of change. But we can see this river kind of opening up there in the Arctic. That's got the potential to bring some much colder air into Canada. So if you're up in Manitoba or Ontario, I'd be looking for some colder weather coming. And then we get this low, this large low developing off the west coast. So that's going to be the next big change. We talked about that back on Thursday, potentially blocking the pattern a little bit. And yeah, indeed, there's a big ridge over Arkansas, over Alaska there. It's forming a bit of an omega block. See that right there? And we call that an omega block because it resembles the Greek letter omega. So that could be what's happening there, maybe a little bit of a blocking pattern coming together. And let's see what else is going on. Zonal flow over the northern U.S., big river of Arctic, I'm not going to say Arctic air, big river of polar air coming out of Canada. Looks like maybe below normal temperatures in the Great Lakes region and the north central U.S. That could also kick a couple boundaries down to the south. So we're going to watch for that. That boundaries coming southward into Texas and Arkansas, that can mean enhanced thunderstorm activity for that area. Those are very good instigators of convection. Very efficient there. All right, then we get into next week, 12th, 13th, and yeah, that river of cold air is in full effect. It's very interesting. And then we have a pretty strong subtropical high building over Nevada and California. So we're going to see temperatures coming up in that area next week. And then we get, I don't know if you saw that off the East Coast right there, GFS going for, I think that's that Florence. Is that Florence? Let me go back and look. Sometimes I can't keep track of all these names here. Yeah, that's Florence. So yeah, that's the GFS bringing that towards the East Coast. That's around the 12th or 13th, so that's still a ways off, and that could change a whole lot. But the dynamical model bringing it close to New England there. And that's it. You can see that Hudson Bay vortex is getting really, really active there. It's kind of unusual for September, but there it is right there. So we're going to be looking at a lot of northwesterly flow coming up for the first half of September. So if you like cold weather and you're in the eastern or the northeastern U.S., you're in luck. So we're going to put that together and look at the surface systems. Yeah, this will be a good chart for that there. Now, actually, I want to look at precipitable water. Let's see what that's doing. Okay, yeah, there's those very high precipitable water amounts, and basically, if you're up over 2 inches, you're probably looking at 30% chances of rain or better. That's not always the case. If we have an upper level high, big old subtropical high sitting over the area, that'll shut things down, you know, but we don't have that. The subtropical high is kind of backed off and it's over the eastern part of the U.S. So that means open season for convection. And that's pretty much the area where the storms are going to be going up tomorrow. So the bulk of this moisture is going to be working its way into East Texas there tomorrow. Probably some very high precipitation amounts. And then you can see the isobars out into the Gulf like this. See this pattern right here? I'm looking at the black lines. So that's indicating we've got this river of tropical air coming up from the Bahamas, Cuba, Puerto Rico, up into the southeast U.S. And that's just going to continue feeding these storms this week. And of course, some of that's going to make it up into the northern U.S. And you can see that heading up to Nebraska and Iowa for Tuesday. And then here comes this other tropical system. This is that system that NHC was forecasting to move into Louisiana and Texas. There it is on Tuesday morning. And the dynamical model brings that into the New Orleans area for Wednesday. Okay, let's see. The next big change after that. This is indicating probably a couple of boundaries sinking southward for next weekend into the central U.S. And yeah, here comes another one. New outbreak of cold air coming in for Monday next week. And there's Florence right there. So we'll wait and see on that. And let's see, next week, yeah, we're kicking some boundaries southward. So looks like we'll have some rain chances down in the southern U.S. depending on the timing of that. And you can see the precipitable water amounts start going down towards mid-month. You can see, looks like they're down below an inch across much of the eastern U.S. there. And that's a symptom of all that northwesterly flow coming into the area. So I guess for this time of year, that's kind of a nice pattern to be in. It's much better than having 95 over 70, which can certainly happen in the Midwest this time of year. Okay, let's see. That's about all I've got here. Let me just take a quick look at chat. Adam Davis says 2018, year of the Hudson Bay vortex. Yeah, if this continues into November or December, we're going to be looking at kind of a cold winter, very likely there. Carl Burkhoff says, let's get those likes up. I appreciate that. And Joshua Hurd says, Florence looks like it's coming to Savannah, Georgia. Well, maybe. We'll wait and see on that. There's certainly, an outside possibility it could affect the southeastern U.S., but right now looks like it's just going to kind of graze part of Cape Cod there. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. That's still a ways off. All right, so I appreciate you all joining tonight. We'll be back on Tuesday at the same time. Take care, and we'll see you then. Have a good one.